We can start.
Uh, okay. Ano ba? Okay. Begin.
Good afternoon, everyone.
You want
Good
you
afternoon.
Alin? Ha?
So I'll talk where you can hear me. All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this special Friday conference for our bioethics. So Elaine, we can start. So yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for everyone who are here now. This is our first ethics conference. Okay. Barbie and Kaya will be presenting. You may start now, Barbie.
Yes.
Okay.
So, good afternoon, doctors. I'm Barbara Ngo, one of the first-year residents. Today, we'll be discussing informed consent as a principle in medical research. So, ethical principles in research. So you should minimize the risk for harm, obtain an informed consent, protect the dignity, anonymity, and confidentiality of the participant, and promote data integrity. So, the in any research, the research must be justified if the study has social value to an existing social or health problem, such that the results are expected to bring about a better understanding of related issues or contribute to the promotion of the well-being of individuals, their families, and communities. The participation of human beings in research can only be justified if the study has a social value. The significance of the study shall be clearly described in a separate section of the protocol with an accurate and updated description of the status of the social and health problem and how the study will help arrive at a solution. The methodology, including the study design, environment, and participants, instruments, tools, data gathering, collection, procedures, and analysis should be able to generate information or knowledge supportive of the objectives of the study. Social value can only be realized if the study is scientifically valid. A dissemination plan for the study results shall be included in the protocol, and dissemination is essential to achieving social value. The Research Ethics Committee shall also determine the appropriateness and the practicability of the dissemination plan, as well as the suitability of the recipient's information. So, in an informed consent, obtaining it is a process that begins when initial contact is made with the potential participant, and it continues throughout the study. By informing the potential participants of the purpose of the research project, repetition and explanation, answering their questions as they arise, ensuring that they understand each procedure, and obtaining agreement from them. Researchers elicit their informed consent, and in doing so, manifest respect for dignity and autonomy. An informed consent is a competent participant's decision to take part in research after receiving and understanding completely the relevant information about the study, as well as their rights, without having been subjected to coercion, undue influence, inducement, or intimidation. Informing the potential participant shall not be simply a ritualistic recitation of the contents of a written document. Rather, the researcher shall convey the information, whether orally, in writing, or other methods of communication, in a language and manner that suits the individual's capacity and level of understanding. For most research involving humans, the researcher shall obtain the voluntary informed consent of the prospective research participant. But in cases wherein an individual who is incapable of giving or has diminished capacity to give an informed consent, the researcher must exert effort to obtain their assent and the consent of a legally authorized representative, according to the applicable laws. And in obtaining the informed consent, sponsors and researchers have the duty to avoid coercion, undue influence, inducement, or intimidation. So what are the essential informations that we need to relate to the participants? The researcher shall provide the following information to the potential research participant, whether orally, in writing, or in both. And it should be in a language that suits the participant's level of understanding. The individual is invited to participate in the research, which is being undertaken by the researcher and their affiliate institution, the purpose of the research, the procedures to be carried out, and an explanation of how the research differs from routine medical or healthcare or social intervention, and the reasons for considering the individual for being suitable for the study. The expected duration for the individual's participation, including the number and duration of the visits to the research center and the total time involved, and the possibility of early termination of the study or the individual's participation in the study. The individual is also free to refuse to participate in the research without penalty or loss of benefits to which they are entitled. They must also know the direct benefits, if there's any, expected to be argued to the individuals for participating in the research, any foreseeable risk, pain, or discomfort, or inconvenience to the individual associated with the participation in the research in both the control and experimental group, including the risk to the health and well-being of the individual spouse or partner. A risk to other contacts aside from the spouse should also be disclosed. And whether money or other forms of material goods will be provided in return for the individual's participation. If so, it should also include the kind and the amount. They should also know the expected contribution of the study to scientific knowledge and the expected benefits to the community or society at large. Whether, when, and how any intervention proven by the research to be safe and beneficial will be made available to the participants after they have completed their participation in the research, and whether they will be expected to pay or not. Provisions made to ensure respect for the privacy of research participants and the confidentiality of records in which they are identified, including documentation through the taking of pictures and recording of the interview, and that these might be displayed in publications or conferences or fora. Where collected research data or research results include personal information, the research participant must give consent not just to collecting the information, but also to the dissemination and sharing of that information
Barbara, we lost you. Am I the only one who cannot hear?
No, I can't hear her as well, Doctora.
Can you check the connection, please? Okay, sige.
Well,
We're back po, Doc. Sorry.
Sorry. Even if the participants have already granted the consent, the researchers have an ethical duty to see to it that such dissemination, disclosure, or sharing will not subject the participants to risk of serious harm. It would be prudent for researchers to consult experts from the Research Ethical Committee regarding ethical dilemmas presented by the participants' expressed wish for him to be identified or to have their statements attributed to them. And on the other hand, reputational, legal, and other risks to decide whether such information should be disseminated, disclosed, or shared. Legal or other limits to the researcher's ability to safeguard confidentiality and the possible consequences of breaches of confidentiality. The participants must also know the sponsors or funders of the research, the institutional affiliation of the researchers, and the nature and sources of the funding of the research. The participants are also free to withdraw from the research anytime without having any reason and without having any penalty or loss of benefits to which they are entitled. So another essential information is the participants' consent for future processing of their personal data, identifiable biological specimens, and medical records, including storage, use for subsequent research, sharing of specimens and data, and final disposition of collected data, information, and identifiable biological specimens. And if the personal data, medical records, and specimens collected will not be destroyed after the research, where, how, and for how long they will be stored, and for what purposes. And that the participants also have the right to decide about future uses, sharing, or destruction of the collected personal data, identifiable specimens, and medical records. The participants must also know whether commercial products may be developed from identifiable biological specimens, and whether research participants shall receive any monetary or benefits from such developed products. The extent of the researcher's responsibility to ensure needed services for the research participant, and that treatment and rehabilitation will be provided free of charge for the specified types of research-related injury and for complications associated with the research, the nature and duration of such care, and the name of the medical service or organization that will provide the treatment, and whether there are any uncertainty regarding the funding of such treatment. So another essential information is that under the Data Privacy Act, the participant has the right to information access, correction, deletion, data portability, and to complain before the National Privacy Commission and to receive any damages for the violation of their data privacy rights where applicable. Such rights may be exercised by the participants' heirs in the event of the former's incapacity or death. In applicable cases, the protocol must explain why data participants' rights needed to be limited to protect research integrity as allowed by the Data Privacy Act. Another essential information is that PRED, accredited Research Ethics Committee, has approved or cleared the research protocol, the contact information of the persons designated to respond to the following details: queries and details regarding the protocol, issues relating to the human rights of the participants, data privacy queries or concerns of the participants, related concerns and grievances, and management of such related injuries. So how do you document a consent. So as a rule, documentation of informed consent includes an actual signature or thumb mark of the prospective participant on the informed consent. To ensure participant voluntariness and understanding of the execution of the informed consent, and to protect both participant and researcher, particularly for highly sensitive and controversial studies or research, notarization of the informed consent may be considered as an option. So advances in technology for documentation of informed consent, such as electronic signature, electronic informed consent form, and consent statements in online forms or recordings may be utilized, but these are subject to the approval of the Research Ethics Committee. And when the use of an informed consent form is not feasible or is unacceptable to the participant, a description of the process attested by a witness who is acceptable to the participant may be substituted, subject to the approval of the Ethics Committee. Other ways of documenting the informed consent may also be explored, but these are also subject to the approval. So when is an informed consent may be waived? So waiver of an informed consent is regarded to be exceptional and must be approved by the Ethics Committee. The informed consent process may be waived in specific research contexts, such as archival of research involving publicly available documents, research that uses the method of naturalistic observation in data collection, if all the following requirements are complied with. There is a thorough justification for the use of naturalistic observation, plan for how the data collected will be used, assurance that risk of participants are unlikely, and mechanism to ensure confidentiality and anonymity of observed individuals and their data. So some or all of the elements of an informed consent may be waived or amended with prior approval of the Ethics Committee if all of these conditions are met. The research presents no more than minimal risk. Waiver or amendment will not adversely affect the rights and welfare of the participants. The research cannot be practicably carried out without the waiver or alteration. The participants will be provided with additional pertinent information after their participation whenever available. And in renewing of consent, it should be in any consent forms, it should be time-bound and may be withdrawn earlier or rescinded by the participant. The informed consent of each participant shall be renewed under the following conditions. If there are any significant changes in the circumstances and procedures of the research, if there's new information becomes available that could affect the willingness of the research participant to continue in long-term studies at predetermined intervals, even if there are no changes in the design or objectives. If there are minors, and if the minors become adolescents or the adolescents become adults. So in research, there's also a vulnerable participants. So vulnerable participants shall require special protection as they have certain characteristics or in special situations that tend to magnify their vulnerabilities or expose them to risk that may otherwise be unwilling to take. Vulnerable participants are those who are relatively or absolutely incapable of deciding for themselves whether or not to participate in the study for reasons such as physical or mental disabilities, poverty, asymmetric power relations, and marginalizations, and those who are at greater risk for some harms. The vulnerable groups shall not be included in research unless the research is absolutely necessary to promote the welfare of the population represented, and they cannot be performed on non-vulnerable persons or groups. So, researchers, sponsors, and ethics committee shall not arbitrarily exclude women of reproductive age from biomedical research. The potential for becoming pregnant during a study shall not in itself be used as a reason for precluding or limiting the women's participation in research. Competent advice and medical assistance shall be provided to participants who, due to social, economic, political, or medical disadvantages, are more likely to give consent under duress or without benefit of adequate information. Caution shall be exercised in obtaining informed consent for a research project if the research participant is in an dependent relationship with the researcher, to ensure that the consent is not given under duress or undue influence. So for benefits, risks, and safety, research can only be justified if there is a reasonable likelihood that the participants or the population to which they belong stand to derive benefits from it. All research involving human participants shall be preceded by a careful assessment of predictable risk, burden, and foreseeable benefits to the research participant or others. Every precaution shall be taken to minimize the negative impact of the study of the research participants' well-being, and all efforts should be done to maximize the potential benefits. Research shall be conducted only if there is an acceptable positive benefit-risk ratio and the participants who are going to be affected give their consent to assume research-related risks. The researcher, funders, or sponsor shall endeavor to ensure that the reasonable availability and accessibility of favorable research outcomes to the community. When there is ethical and scientific justification to conduct research with individuals capable of giving informed consent, the risk from research interventions that do not hold out the perspective of direct benefit of the individual participant shall be no more likely and no greater than the risk of attached to routine medical or psychological examination of such persons. Slight or minor increases above such risk may be permitted when there is an overriding of scientific or medical rationale for such increases and when the ethics committee has approved. So the researcher also shall endeavor to ensure the reasonable availability and accessibility of favorable research outcomes to the community. And when there is ethical and scientific justification to conduct research, sorry. So for the privacy of the participants, it should always be observed unless it is required by law that the confidentiality must be breached. Records that link individuals to specific personal information shall not be released. This requirement shall be included in the informed consent form. Researchers shall refrain from identifying individuals or groups when the release of information about them can expose them to possible harm or social stigma. Release of information should be included among the items in the informed consent form, and the participants must be specifically asked if they consent to the release of information collected in the study and informed of the potential risk and consequences if there is any. And when there is a likelihood for the researchers to observe the occurrence of illegal or harmful behaviors, such as child abuse, substance use, self-harm, or suicide ideation, the researcher shall explicitly indicate the limits of confidentiality in the informed consent process, such as when the researcher is ethically and legally obligated to disclose the identity of the respondent to the relevant legal authorities to forestall imminent harm to self or others, and to prepare a concrete and realistic protocol for reporting and referral of imminent harm in a criminal act is disclosed and discovered in the process of data collection. The researchers shall also recognize that collecting data using group methods has implications for the privacy and confidentiality of individual participants and possibly third parties. Therefore, adequate safeguards must be provided. The researcher shall describe their data management and protection plan in the protocol, including the steps to be taken so that all who have access to the data and their identities will be safeguarded. So for justice, in research involving human participants, the principle of justice refers primarily to the equitable distribution of both the burdens and benefits of participation in research. And it is unjust for one group in society to bear the cost of research while another group reaps its benefits. The research should not worsen existing health or social inequities. Individuals and communities shall have access to benefits related to participation in the study. There must be also fair selection in the choice of population, sampling, and assignments. Appropriate care shall be provided to research participants, regardless of their economic status, gender, race, or creed. There shall be just compensation for harms brought about by participation in the research, and research participants shall be reimbursed for lost earnings, travel costs, and other expenses incurred when taking part in the study. However, when there is no prospect for direct benefit, participants may be given a reasonable and appropriate incentive for the inconvenience. The payment shall not be so large as to induce prospective participants to participate in research against their better judgment. Payments or reimbursement shall be given on the day of follow-up or the procedure and not at the end of the study. Participants should also be protected from all possible forms of exploitation. So all parties must be transparent, including any actual or potential conflicts of interest. And transparency is not opposed to privacy. It actually promotes confidence in research enterprise. It also discloses the research results to the research participants and the stakeholders. Transparency about aspects of a study may impact the rights, health, safety of the participants, and that their information may have a bearing on the decision of the participants. Disclosure of research results to participants should apply all of the following. The findings are scientifically valid and confirmed. Significant implications for the participants' well-being, and the course of action to ameliorate these concerns when it is available. Wait.
Just read your slide.
Sorry.
You're reading the text now. Just read your slides.
Yes. Sorry. Sorry. Wait lang. So, transparency also imposes responsibility on the researchers to disclose information about their affiliations, loyalties, financial, and other competing interests that may affect their objectivity and the integrity of their research output. It also requires the participants to be truthful in declaring their health conditions and to be candid in expressing their concerns about their involvement in research. So, adherence to the applicable provisions of the Data Privacy Act of 2012, um, it exempts for the processing of the personal information for research purposes, provided that the processing of personal information for research purposes is intended for a public benefit. And it is reasonable and appropriate physical, organization, and technical security measures are used to protect the data of the participants. So now we're gonna use a scenario. So, for example, we have Mrs. Flor. She's a 50-year-old seamstress from Sibuyan Island. She has not been seeing well for the previous year and finally decided to do a consult in Manila. During the consult, Dr. Q finds out that Mrs. Flor has normal acuity in both eyes, but has elevated intraocular pressures with closed angles in gonioscopy. During that time, Dr. Q wonders if there is some way that people from faraway regions could be screened earlier without having to travel to Manila or long distances. Then that's when he found a research paper showcasing a study that there's a camera that could be used by non-ophthalmologists in seeing the angles of the eyes, such as in angle closure glaucomas.
Okay, sige. So segueing away from the scenario po. So yeah, here in Makati Med, we're actually doing a study, IRB approved study that's going to evaluate camera for imaging the iridocorneal angles of the eyes of patients so that we can potentially screen patients from far-flung areas. So from this scenario, we will have our patient and I will be recruiting the patient under the study and I will be explaining to her the informed consent. So once I have given my informed consent, I will be open to the patient for any questions that she may have. So for the patient, do you have any questions for us regarding the study that we'll be doing?
Doctor, why am I being invited to participate in this study?
Okay, so you are invited to participate in this research study so that we can evaluate po. Are you okay po pala with using English as our language of discussion po sa natin, informed consent?
Pwede po Taglish?
Okay,
Um,
sige. So
sige po.
in-invite po namin kayo to participate in this research study so that we can evaluate yung diagnostic performance of a new portable gonioscopic imaging device or isang camera na ginagamit para i-image yung anggulo ng mata para makakuha tayo ng high-resolution images ng angles. At ito po ay ikukumpara natin sa conventional na ginagawa natin na tinatawag na gonioscopy na ginagawa po natin sa aparato sa mga klinika natin. So yung purpose po ng study na to para ma-assess yung potential ng device na ginagamit natin sa pag-diagnose or pag-screen and pag-manage ng mga eye conditions, mas lalo na sa mga different types ng glaucoma.
Doc, what will I be
Yes.
asked to do? Anong gagawin ko?
So for the study po, pag kayo po ay pumayag na sumali sa study, mag-undergo po kayo ng non-invasive imaging procedure gamit nung device na ating gagamitin po. So yung process po mag-i-involve ng paglagay ng isang device ng malapit sa mata ninyo. Tapos ito po ang gagamitin natin para kumuha ng pictures dun sa angulo ng mata nyo. So yung procedure po na to will be performed by a healthcare professional or yung principal investigator, which is ako po yun. So habang ginagawa po natin, may possible risks and discomfort po tayo na pwede maranasan. So gagamit po
Ano
tayo ng
yun?
anesthetic. Yun po. So, gagamit po tayo ng anesthetic eye drop sa procedure which may cause temporary eye discomfort or stinging sensation or sometimes pwede po magkaroon ng konting kirot na magre-resolve din naman po in a few seconds after tayong pumatak. So, walang permanente naman na problema po na dapat ma-encounter dahil dito sa mga pampatak na to. Bukod po dito, yung gagamitin po nating isa pang device na tinatawag nating gonioscopy lens na ginagamit po sa conventional na gonioscopy or yung pagtingin sa anggulo ng mata, ay gagamitin din po natin sa device natin. So ilalagay po natin to tinatawag nating lente na to sa harap ng iyong cornea o yung kristal ng mata nyo para tayo po ay makakita ng anggulo ng mata nyo at yung anterior chamber or yung harap po ng ating mata. So, yung paggamit po nitong lente na to ay pwedeng mag-cause ng konting discomfort or pressure even after naglagay na tayo ng pampatak sa mata natin. Pero the
Doc,
procedure naman, yes po, yes po.
sorry, Doc. Doc, what happens if I do not choose to join the survey? Can I stop or withdraw from the study even after you started na?
Yes po, ma'am. If ever po for any reason nag-decide po kayo na gusto niyo pong mag-discontinue sa study, pwedeng po kayo mag-discontinue na wala naman po mangyayaring any untoward incidents or hindi kayo mawawalan ng benefits dun sa study na inano natin para sa inyo. So at any time, pwede po kayong mag-discontinue sa study. At ang participation niyo po is completely voluntary lamang po dito sa study natin.
Doc, you mentioned benefits. What are the benefits for my participation in the
Ah,
study?
so, yung benefits po na pwede natin makuha dito ay unang-una pwede tayong mag-contribute sa advancement ng eye care technology tsaka potential po sa pag-detect ng early and condition sa mata natin. Mas lalo na sa mga pasyenteng tulad nyo na nasa malalayong lugar. Yung study po will benefit you as the patient po as well as you will be able to document po yung anggulo ng mata nyo which we will provide for you. Bukod pa doon, may glaucoma specialist tayo na pwedeng magbigay ng assessment on your ocular health and standing habang tayo ay participating sa study. Tapos if ever magkaroon kayo habang nasa nasa study po kayo, at may nakita po tayong kondisyon sa mata na kailangan ng management, kami po ay magbibigay ng natuturing na consult at management para dun sa kondisyon na iyon.
Doc, kung kunyari ma-injure ako, I experience distress or harm as part of the study, ano pong gagawin niyo?
So, sa simula pa lang po, tayo po ay gagawa ng lahat ng ating pwedeng gawin para ma-minimize po ang chances na magkaroon po kayo ng discomfort or harm. Pero pag dumating po ang panahon na kayo po ay nagkaroon ng any type of discomfort or harm, tayo po ay tayo po ay mag magbabali po para sa inyo para kayo po ay mas ma maabiso dun sa nangyari sa inyong mga untoward na mga pangyayari.
Doc, saan gagawin ang study?
So ang study po na to ay gagawin po natin sa outpatient department ng Makati Medical Center during clinic hours under the health services program. So ang mga pasyente po natin will be yung tulad nyo po na naka-enroll sa health services program. Hindi po muna tayo kukuha ng mga pasyente from the private consultants or clinics para po masigurado na yung principal na investigador ay siya din ang titingin sa inyo sa simula hanggang matapos ang study para para sa
Gano'n
continuation
katagal to?
ng
Sorry po,
ano
Doc.
po.
Gano'n katagal itong study? Yung participation sa study?
So yung
Isang taon?
participation of this study po will entail lang po isang initial po na check-up tsaka follow-up din po ng after kung may conditions po kami na na-identify para sa inyo. Pero the totality po ng pag-participate nyo at the study will be on the initial lang po na pagpunta nyo. And after that, if may nakita po kaming problema sa inyo, we will be managing po yung mga problems na yun. Pero after po the initial consult nyo sa amin, you will be, the study, for your participation in the study will now be complete po.
How long will the test take?
The test will take a few minutes lang po. So there may two types of procedures po tayong gagawin. Yung isa yung pipicturean at yung isa yung conventional. So each should take just about siguro less than a minute lang po per eye po natin.
Doc, how will confidentiality be maintained? How will I protect my privacy?
Okay. So yung privacy po ninyo ay aming i-safeguard po sa pamamaraan ng pagmamask po or pagtago ng pangalan nyo into mga codes or mga letra na kami lang po ang decipher o kami lang po ang makaka-identify. Lahat po ng impormasyon nyo po ay magiging tago sa ibang tao at ang pwede lang po makaalam kung sino yung participant na nakakaano ay yung mga investigador lang po na gagawa ng study. Tapos, bukod po doon, yung pong mga data na isa-store natin will be protected or nakastore sa ating mga safe mga paper charts natin will be safeguarded sa isang closed na covered envelope na nakatago po sa cabinet na may susi. And yung mga digital images po natin ay nakasave sa isang password protected na na SD card na ating pong gagamitin lang para dun sa study.
Very good.
Okay.
Do we have to pay for anything?
Wala po tayong babayaran para sa study na to. Ang partisipasyon niyo po dito ay magiging voluntaryo lang po. And ang magiging benefits nga po nito ay pag may nakita kaming condition sa mata ninyo, ang tamang paglunas at pag-manage ng condition nyo ay ibibigay po namin.
Who do I call if I have questions about the study?
Pwede niyo pong tawagan ng principal investigator po. Kung ako po yun, ibibigay ko na lang po ang number ninyo po. Or ibibigay ko po ang other forms of contact details ko kung may mas madali po sa inyong maka-reach out sa amin. Whether through text, cellphone, email, we will provide you with yung contact details po.
Tapos papa-approve ba niyo ito sa Research Ethics Committee? Meron daw ganun eh. Papa-approve ba siya?
Ang study po nito ay na-approve na po ng research board po ng Makati Medical Center at na-approve na po siya for start of data collection po ng study. So ang pag-participate niya po dito ay approved na ng IRB ng Makati Medical Center.
Okay, thank you po for answering all my questions. Sige po, I'm willing to join po and be one of the participants. Okay, thank you.
Thank you po. Actually, may isa pa po ata tayo may magtatanong sa atin.
Just a few questions lang, no, I guess. You have to be very clear. What's the term? Hindi niyo pwede masyadong guluhin yung pasyente with data. Even if you want to give the complete set of information, you are going to overwhelm the patient with all the data here. I think the most important thing for research, for informed consent, is hindi ganyan yung pag-informed consent. No? The informed consent should be given to the patient. The written informed consent should be given to the patient prior to talking to the patient. No?
Yes.
So you have to give them a copy of the informed consent, let them mull over it, let the relatives look into it, and then you set up a time where you will talk and you will ask them questions, if they have any questions. No?
Yeah.
Be careful in promising your especially in this, what is the extent of your management when you diagnose the patient with glaucoma? Everything?
Just yung sa condition na yan doon.
Kasi sinabi mo gagamutin mo siya.
I-manage yung condition po doon.
Kung kailangan ng operasyon, libre.
Ay, hindi po.
So you have to be clear with that. Kasi ang ano mo is, ang tanong dito is, so ano po ang mangyayari kung ano natin na may glaucoma? You have to be clear on the limits of what you will do for the patient. Your limit is diagnosis. So that's it. Okay, for this study. If this was a treatment protocol, then ang limit mo is yung treatment and then possible complications. So ganun yun. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na gagamutin kita pag na-diagnose kitang glaucoma. Kasi that is not included in your budget. Was it included in your budget?
Ano,
Hindi.
Doc? Pero this was under the premise na HSP sila.
Oh, HSP. So ano ang, kasi when you say gagamutin mo,
Like yung treat talaga. Oh.
you will treat the patient at no cost to them.
Mhm.
Diba? So ang ano ni pasyente is, ay sinabi ni doktor, pag may na-diagnose dito, okay na ako.
Mhm.
They will take care of everything. So be careful with that statement. No? So ang statement dyan is, we will diagnose you and then we will treat you like any other patient. Bahala ka mag-frame nung sagot na yun.
Okay, Doc.
Pero hindi yung gagamutin sila from the study.
Mhm.
Okay? Be careful with that. No? Tapos, ano pa, an informed consent is very difficult. No? That's why it's very important for you to have an informed consent in the vernacular and in
Yes.
whatever, in English. No? So you always have two sets of informed consent. But you ask the patient nga kung ano yung
Mas preferred.
mas prefer nila.
Yes.
And then yun yung ipapabasa nyo. No? Right now, the protocol for doing clinical trials is that you give a written informed consent and then you
Yes,
make
so.
them read it. Okay. That's why you create an informed consent.
Yes,
Diba? Doon
so.
sa trial mo. Ibibigay mo yun sa kanila. Now, the other thing that can be questioned here is because this is a diagnostic study, yun nga, ano ang mangyayari sa pasyente kapag na-diagnose mo sila?
Mhm.
What is the you say there's benefit to the community dahil may come up with a new diagnostic tool, but what is the benefit to the patient kung na-diagnose mo na siya? So that has to be laid out very, very well. No? Yan ang usual tanong ng IRB. So you diagnose something, what do you do with it?
Okay.
Diba? Like the RP papers. So na-diagnose niya may RP, anong gagawin niyo?
Wala naman.
Diba?
Yes, Doc.
Kasi meron kang, you have the responsibility to the patient. Hindi lang especially for diagnostic research. No? For therapeutic papers, therapeutic research, ang ano mo sa pasyente is, kung may naging komplikasyon, sagot mo ba lahat?
Yeah.
Diba? So if I'm giving a clinical trial na drug na intravitreal, nagkaroon ng endophthalmitis, sagot ko lahat yon. Ganun ba? Dapat ganun, malinaw yun sa pasyente. So yun yung mga kailangan yung i-point out sa patients na my fear with, and although this is a good role playing, because you get to understand kung ano, those are not the usual questions that patients would ask.
Yes, Doc.
The patient will usually ask, what's in it for me?
Mhm.
How often do I come? Which was being asked. No? Do I get something in return?
Yes.
So, and then if you tell them there's a monetary, then may discussion pa yan. So, just be careful when you're doing an informed consent, especially for research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Doc. So the informed consent form will be sent out naman sa Doc, patient prior to the Okay. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We learned from, thank you, Sherman, no, for all the clarifications, Reno. Just to let you know, well, because research ethics is part of the curriculum PBO wanted. So I was just thinking, thank you, Barbs, for presenting this. And we chose it, it's quite comprehensive, but it's based on the Philippine Health Research Ethics Board. They came up with an updated guideline, no? And this is what came up. It's now called National Ethics Guidelines for Research Involving Human Participants, which was done during the time of the COVID. So I was just thinking maybe these guidelines can help the younger residents as you undergo your research projects, no? But if anything, what this is really, why are we doing this topic? It's because it's really, how do you bring it back to ethics? It's the respect for persons, because it's based on autonomy, where the person, a competent person, should be capable of choosing to decide if he'll join or not, if it's in his best interest. That's why, while that's what the patient usually asks, what's in it for me, no? Anong benefit sa kanya? Basically that, no? So that's what it is. And if the National Ethic Guidelines, they find it as parang you can recognize the personal dignity and autonomy of the individual. So basically, that's what this is all about. Okay, so when you use your informed consent, you have to remember it's a continuous process, no? Because it can change, di ba? If things do change in the middle, you have to make sure you update, you renegotiate your informed consent. You have to do that. And then you have to make sure the research participants give it freely and voluntarily, you know, all that. As it was explained also by Sherman kanina. And then it's not a one in one sitting. They have to be able to bring it home. They have to think about it and they have to understand everything, di ba? Yun. And the document is it's like an ethical and legal right for them, no? So basically that, no? Let's see, Barbs, what do you feel is the purpose of the informed consent? Why do we need one? Or any of the residents can answer.
Doc, bali, we need informed consent so that the research participant will not will be fully informed to know ano yung mga what's the purpose of the study, what's the how the study will be conducted, and how it will benefit the society and the person himself or herself, and if there are any possible risks, and
Yeah.
if there's a risk, how would the researchers be able to help the participant?
Yeah, yes, you got that, no? Basically, no, to protect the research participants. Kasi we're back to respect for person, human dignity, no? From possible, you know, injustice, exploitation, like that. And you have to inform them of everything before they agree. And another purpose, Ren, is to protect the researcher in the end, di ba? Para the researcher, the institution, like what Dr. Sherman mentioned, they might go back to the researcher and they might have undue claims, expectations. Akala ko you're going to cure everything, you know, something like that, di ba? So it protects first the participant and then the researcher. And the third is also, it helps protect the quality of the research. Because if you know it has to go through the IRB, you'll make sure it's a good one. And you know, you have to comply with all the requirements, no? So basically, yeah, that's what we have there. And then, okay. So anybody wants to make a comment?
Doctora, I have a question for Barbs. Barbs, what if it is a retrospective study? Do I need an informed consent?
Retrospective. No, Doc. It is one of the parang observational in a way siya na yung data lang yung tinitingnan mo. So parang you don't need the
But it's my personal data. It will contain my comorbidities, if ever I have infectious diseases, diba? So do you need an informed consent in that case?
what?
And it's not a publicly published data. It's a medical record.
Maybe. Okay, I'm thinking lang, no? can this fall under the waiver of informed consent? But you have to follow, make sure that the anonymity is maintained. Is that possible? You'll not be able to do that, no?
It
You'll
actually
rely on-
falls under that, Doc.
Huh?
The informed consent can
Yes.
be waived for medical records that have already been used in previous study if they have already informed to the if the study that they were previously involved in if explicitly said that they may use the data in other studies. So you can apply for the waiver of not to obtain an informed consent anymore in those studies.
And also if the information is not sensitive, no?
And
You'll
it's
have to-
actually written in the Health Information Privacy in the Philippines, Doc. Health research permits review of medical records without consent for the purpose of research lang, provided yung data is de-identified. So even if si Doc Rem is yung health status niya or is private pero ginamit sa previous data, just as long as de-identified si Doc Rem dun sa study ni Barbs, she can use the data without with the waiver of yung sa not needing the informed consent anymore.
So remember, the anonymity should be maintained and it won't have any adverse effects on the patient, no, who involved. Okay.
I think Doc Valero is asking a question.
Sure. Yes, sure, ma'am.
So the question really is parang related to Rem's question. If it's sensitive information and then hindi pa nagagamit yung data dati, let's say you wanted to get the incidence of HIV retinopathy reported in cases with HIV retrospectively, how would you now get that data, and does that need informed consent? Hindi pa nagagamit yung data na yun dati. So it's just like the data of the HIV center. They did not consent to their data being used. Could you now use that data? It's for the good of society. It's for, diba? It's retrospective. You're not gonna give any treatment.
Doc, I think the data privacy for those particular subset of people or vulnerable populations are subject pa rin to informed consent. So if there's no explicit informed consent that they can provide the information, you cannot use that information for your study. Because you will
Actually,
be
hindi
violating.
siya considered vulnerable population. Vulnerable population are children.
More on pala,
Hindi, yan, it's just really data
particular
privacy yan. That's data
Yeah,
privacy. Hindi yung it's really, you cannot use the data of the patient without express consent, no? Even if it's retrospective. So always think like that. If you are going to use someone's data, think if it was your data and if it was a sensitive information, would you be okay with them using it? If you're not okay with them using it, then that means it will need consent. Diba?
Yes, no.
So that's a more practical way of approaching it. Kung ikaw ba HIV positive and gusto gamitin ng data mo, would you consent? Would you let them use it without your knowledge? Di ba hindi?
Yes, no.
Or if kung TB siguro, baka pwede or whatever. But think of the most serious situation before you say hindi kailangan, no? And that's not being a vulnerable population. Vulnerable population means they cannot decide for themselves. The power index is very different, no? So just think of that lang. Okay? Thank you.
Actually, Doc, I have a question din po. I'm not sure kung ano siya dito, pero to everyone na lang din in the room. When participants are in a study, kunwari, dalawa sila, and the data involved is very sensitive. But you did all the safeguards you could para hindi malabas yung data nila or but it turned out pala, Doc, that the other study participant was actually the one who divulged the information to the public that the other participant is is in this state. Is the study investigator absolved from that, being that the other study participant was the one who divulged the information, and you were safeguarding naman the data of the of all of them.
Uh,
Sorry na.
how can that happen if you're maintaining anonymity per uh per study participant? I don't get a
I was
scenario na
I was thinking
dalawang participant knows each other.
yeah, I was thinking though kasi may in some kasi trials kunwari they're testing for like a new HIV screening test, tapos they're in one place, tapos yung isang participant nasa lobby parang, tapos kunwari nag-post siya na ay nakita ko tong isang tao na to in the lobby kung saan ako nagpa-test for this kind of condition. So in a way parang dinivulge na din niya na nagpunta yung participant na yun dun sa study na yun. Can the study participant na dinivulge nung person na yun complain dun sa kasi they were inside the study area? Or absolved ba yung study investigator dahil nga wala hindi naman sila directly yung nag-divulge? Kasi parang the mere fact na nandun sila sa study site at the same time, parang indirectly sinabi niya na, nandito ako para magpa-test kunwari for a new kind of disease. Like kunwari sabi natin may COVID, tapos yung isang other person nagpa-test din for this disease like COVID. Tapos sinabi, oy nakita ko siya doon. Mukhang pareho kami may ganun. So, yung study investigators will be pa rin, implicated pa rin doon, or absolved ba sila dahil hindi sila yung nag-divulge ng information?
Isn't that just mere assumption? Hindi naman lahat ng tao sa ospital ay may sakit. Yung iba ay companion. So, uh, uh,
I was thinking lang if kumari nga they do decide na parang nalaman nila na nagpapatingin ako ng ganito tapos may nagsabi na iba. I was just thinking if may may liability ba yung study investigator doon or wala naman.
For me, parang wala naman.
parang wala naman. Yeah.
Naman siya,
Ayan.
hindi naman niya responsibility, no?
Hindi naman siya yung nag-breach nung informed consent agreement, 'di ba?
Hmm. May questions pa po ba from the audience?
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Barney.
Uh,
Can
Yes,
I
go
just
ahead,
make
Bob.
yeah,
Yes, go
just
ahead,
a quick comment lang regarding your regarding the situation that was posed. My thinking is meron pa ring liability yung investigator somewhat. In the sense that pwedeng part of the methodology pa rin yung breach eh. Kasi you could have made it in such a way na hindi exposed sila to each other. Parang ganon. To a certain degree. I'm not saying that it probably won't hold up in court, pero I would think if I was the primary investigator, parang I'll still feel a little bit guilty there. Maybe I should have protected against that too. Parang ganun. Just food for thought. Yun lang. Bye.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay, thanks, Barney. So maybe in a situation like that, if we try to work on that, siguro when you look at your participants and examine them, you schedule them, na hindi magsasabay-sabay. Maybe that could be done.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask also, no, because now they also do, well, it was more during COVID, when informed consent, you have to do it online and even some tests, no? Well, that's also another thing you have to remember, you know, because your data will be usually Google Forms, that's what they use, no? For how long do you keep it? How long do you store it? You know, those things you have to think about, Ren. Face-to-face is still much better, because at least, you know, you should always give them the time to ask and to consider it, no? It's never something that you just get in one sitting.
Noted po.
Any other questions? Okay, so basically, yeah, thank you for attending, no, everyone. It's just very important that in ethics in research, and we should know the importance of the free and informed consent. We should know that the purpose for that is to show respect for the participant and to give them justice. So basically, those are the ethical principles there: autonomy and justice, respect for persons, human dignity. It protects the participant's right to decide what is best for him or her. And remember, it's a continuous process in the study. If you have to renegotiate, you have to, you have to do that, no? It is obtained with respect, honesty, and concern. And the one who gives it and the researcher should know, give all the benefits and the risks, purpose of the research, nature of the participation, the methodology, as Barney mentioned, no? All that is included, the risks, but most importantly is the voluntariness. And then remember, as always mentioned, they can withdraw at any time without any penalty. And again, very important is handling of the data. Always keep them anonymous and confidential. Very, very important. And then you give your contact information so that they can always get back to you if they have any concerns. Okay, if there are no more questions, can call it a day.
Yes.
No more
Right.
questions.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Thank you, Doc.
attending. Yeah. You okay now, everyone?
Thank you, Doctora.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Doc.
All right. Thank you. Congrats, Barbie and Kaya. Thank you. All right.
Thank you,
Sige.
Doc.
Thank you.
And waiting for all.